Hello, this is Steve Sines with Explore ATL Tours, doing a series of videos to help people envision what Atlanta is going to look like in the future. This particular series focuses on transit, and I'm at the Allene proposed transit stop. I'm on the West Side Trail, and I'm at Allene Street, A-L-L-E-N-E. The neighborhood directly in front of me this way, to the east is Adair Park. South of here and west of here is Capitol View. I'm at a very strategic point in the Atlanta Beltline corridor. The property over here to my right, or straight ahead here, and southwest of where I'm standing, is called Murphy Crossing, which is a large piece of property. It's an assemblage that the Atlanta Beltline Incorporated has been putting together over the last several years, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But that's what's right here on the West Side Trail. But there is a proposed transit stop that's scheduled to be built right here. This is obviously an at-grade crossing, which means that the old railroad tracks, which came through here, cross the street at the same grade, at the same level. So the West Side Trail, I'm on the south end of the West Side Trail. It starts just a few thousand yards southeast of me, right down that way there. That gentleman that's there working on that, that is basically a farm stand. That is Allene Farms. For those of you that have been on my tours, you know about the Atlanta Beltline. It's a 3.5 acre farm, urban farm that is here, that produces vegetables that they sell to the local community and also to restaurants throughout the city. Let me walk a little bit further down Allene Street here and show you a little more of Murphy's Crossing. You will probably recognize this is the intersection here of Catherine and Allene Street, as you can see here, and that is basically the entrance to Adair Park. But if you take a look over here, see this building, this brick building that's kind of curved and sort of was built to hug the railroad tracks there? That is part of Murphy Crossing. And this property here, like I said, is owned by the Atlanta Beltline Incorporated. And by the way, if you look a little further up the West Side Trail, you see that elevated rail line that goes over. That's the MARTA line. That's the north-south red and gold line that goes down to the airport. So that's Lee Street over on the other side of that, and Murphy Avenue on this side of this. So this particular location is very, very important because we're just a few hundred yards south of where the Atlanta Beltline crosses the MARTA line. And again, those of you that have been on my tours know that one of the original visions for the Atlanta Beltline was this 22-mile loop of light transit that would encircle the city. And that 22-mile loop is going to cross the MARTA line at least at 4 points, right? With the so-called compass points. Well, one of those compass points is right here. It's just a few hundred yards from here. This is where the West Side Trail goes underneath the MARTA line, the red and gold line. So there will be a key connection there between Beltline Transit and MARTA Transit. So obviously big impact on the neighborhood of Adair Park, which is right here, and Capitol View, which is just south of me. And going west, you have Oakland City, which is on the other side of Lee Street, and West End, which is also on the other side of Lee Street. And then if you've been through this area, you also know that the Lee and White development, another one of the transformative developments that I've talked a lot about, is also just on the other side of the railroad tracks as well. So, last thing I want to just mention here is this Murphy Crossing property, because this is huge. This is a game changer. In fact, this is one of the 10 game changers that I wrote about in my latest piece, which is called Game Changers, 10 developments that are transforming Atlanta as we speak. This property, it's called Murphy Crossing because Murphy Avenue, it runs the full length of the west side of the property, the western boundary. On this side, it's Allene Street, and I think it's Warner Street on the south side. It basically forms a big triangle. Sometimes they call this Murphy's Triangle. And what's important here is the Atlanta Beltline, as I said a minute ago, has been buying property here. They've sort of been assembling this site. I believe they're up to about 20 acres now, and this is as of early October of 2018. I'd heard that they were negotiating to try to buy some additional land south of here, maybe as much as another 15 acres. So, you know, with or without that, you're looking at 20 minimum, 20 acres minimum, potentially 30 to 40 acres that the Beltline would own. So this is Atlanta Beltline Incorporated has actually purchased the property. So what that means is that ABI will be able to control what gets developed here, when it gets developed, and who gets to develop it. In other words, the developers. I've heard some rumblings recently that the ABI will be making an announcement very soon about a developer, or maybe a team of developers, a consortium of developers that will be leading the redevelopment of this property. And so keep an eye on that. We've been waiting for years for this. This is a huge piece of property. It's got just unlimited potential in terms of things they can do. There's lots of warehouses. Those of you that have been on my tours know that, or the Beltline tour, you know that the Murphy Crossing is the site of the old Georgia State Farmers Market, which moved to Forest Park over half a century ago. I believe they moved to Forest Park in the 1950s, just to give you an idea of how long some of these buildings and these sites have been vacant. So tons of potential on Murphy Crossing. Keep an eye and an ear out for announcements, because when they get started on that, it's going to generate a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of excitement for this area. This is about as prototypical as you get to why there is an Atlanta Beltline. Again, if you've been on my tours, you know that I emphasize that the Beltline is a redevelopment plan. That's actually the name of it, the Atlanta Beltline Redevelopment Plan. It was adopted by the city of Atlanta in 2005 for one main reason, and that was to generate economic development in areas like this that had suffered from almost half a century of disinvestment. And so this piece of property right here, Murphy Crossing, is about as prototypical as you can get as to what the Beltline is all about, why we have a Beltline, and ultimately the promise of the Beltline, which is to breathe life and economic activity back into some of these neighborhoods that have been really neglected for 50, 60, and in some cases 70 years. So anyway, all of these videos will live on envisionatl.com. I'll be organizing them over the next couple of weeks, adding some additional information and links like I always do. I hope you find this helpful. This is Steve Sines with Explore ATL Tours, coming to you from the Allene Avenue proposed transit stop on the West Side Trail in Adair Park.